Hey, there we go. I don't understand why I have to reset my microphone every month, even though I have yet to change any of the specifics on the plugins. But that seems to be the case with this program. Alrighty. Good afternoon. Good Friday. Well, it's not Good Friday, but like Happy Friday. This is going to be apparently in your view. So you're going to see the microphone. I guess I could zoom in a little bit more. It's not the end of the world. Hi, Nick. Happy Friday, Eric. Starting a little early. Hello, Jay. We'll wait for everybody to get in here and then we'll kick things off. Jeremy, hello. Anthony, hello. Sean, Jim, Zach. Boy, there's a lot of people in here. Let's see. If you guys experience any delays in the live stream feed, I got a message a couple times since I started the program that YouTube is having frame rate issues, so there might be some weird frame rate concerns. And they don't have a way for me to fix it. So hopefully everything's fine on your end. Everything looks good on mine. Having said that, just so you're aware, YouTube is telling me there can be buffering issues of your live stream. So hopefully it doesn't impact anybody. I have from the wonderful state of Maryland, I believe this is out of Baltimore. Doesn't sound very big right now, but there's a little bit left of this. This is Sagamore Spirits. It's a cast strength rye. One of my favorites. I highly recommend if you enjoy rye whiskey. And you can find their product. It is consistently one of the better products on the market, in my opinion, in terms of a rye whiskey. So, all right, let's see. Who did I miss? Andrews, hi. Scott, good afternoon. Eric, hey. Edward, Todd. Lil Whirl. I know your name. I don't remember your actual name. So, all right. Hey, Retro51. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in and get started. We'll see what we're going to talk about. Honestly, I thought I was going to have a few more things to show off. Excuse me, and I don't. Hey, Blake, have fun at the wedding rehearsal. Having said that, business as usual, as always. If you're new here, welcome. If not, every single time, well, almost every time we've done a giveaway on a live stream, there is a pinned comment, Pinned, at the top of the live chat. It has a link. Click the link, complete the form so that you can get entered in the random drawing that I'll do at the end of the live stream. So you can have a chance to win one. Sorry, I'm closing my phone and everything. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're going to go ahead and I'll go ahead and get started so we can move along with our Friday. I don't know how long this is going to take. It's going to be a little bit difficult at one point in time when I show off some of the new products. teased the splatter pattern stuff. So I'm just going to switch, maybe. There we go. Switch to the view here. So the two middle pens are the new Yellow Jacket splatter pens. The bottom pen is one of the sunflower yellow. So you can kind of see the difference in the tone of the yellow. I wanted to show that up because we had some people complain about sunflower being too gold, not a traditional yellow. So, yeah. You got to be on kid duty when support your wife, dude. I get it. I fully get it. Gotta do what you gotta do. All right, so this kind of shows you the difference in what the yellows look like. Dark yellow on the bottom and the retract is a new pen. Like, we've been asked to do more retracts, so we're gonna have these ringed retracts, the R types, the smooth uppers in the sunflower available in a couple weeks. I had enough to put one together because we're out of clips. However, the pen club is going to have access to the splatter, the Yellow Jacket splatter pens. I believe the email goes out tomorrow with the link. They'll go live tomorrow. So pen clubs are going to have the option to have those tomorrow. And depending on how, it's early access, so if they don't sell all the way through the pen club, we'll put them on the regular site. Also, depending on how popular they are, we'll probably do, well, if they're really popular, we'll do additional pins in this pattern. So this pattern is kind of one of those mistake type things. The Yellow Jacket is one of the new F series Cerakotes that is supposed to be easier to lay down, goes on more uniform. But our Cerakote applicator ran into all kinds of problems with it. And the pens just wouldn't paint effectively. So it's a little, so we wanted this color as just a yellow option because we have a lot of people that asked for a color in yellow. And he couldn't get the yellow to be uniform without variance or streaking. The flashing, it was flashing off to different tones when he was pre-baking it on. So it just kind of became a little difficult for him to do just a solid yellow pen. Even after like 3, 4, 5 coats. Like, he brought them down here and he had a selection, 3 coats, and they were just not even close to being yellow. Like, you could see beneath the surface. The coverage wasn't great. 4 was getting better. By the time he got to 5, the Cerakote was so thick, we wouldn't be able to thread in any of the screws to get the clip on, and there was issues with the thickness. So basically, he's like, well, I can test out some things. Have you guys ever thought about doing a splatter pattern like this? And I was like, not like this, technically. We've had, and so I mentioned the Jawbreaker pens, and they're different because the Jawbreaker pens, it's not as haphazard. The Jawbreaker pens, they use specific sizes of brushes and even like toothpicks to lay them down to kind of get up more of a uniform, not as like, at least the ones that we did, they wanted to do the quote unquote Jawbreaker effects, like the splatter is more controlled because he wanted to get either like elongated sprinkle shapes or round shapes specifically, as opposed to these look very, like, some of them are like just streaks and things like that. So the Jawbreaker pens are more time consuming, to answer your question. And the white that they're laid down on is not a white that we're going to use in the future, because unfortunately it's UV sensitive and will start to yellow as time goes on, which we didn't know that when he used it. And the other white is pretty problematic. So the white pen that I do have here is not the same thing. I'll show that one in a minute. So the splatter pattern, we didn't know if it was going to work. He went ahead and stripped all the pens down, reapplied the yellow, 2 coats of yellow, just thick enough so that you didn't see the base material. Wasn't really worried about the yellow itself being perfect, because the splatter would kind of trick the eye into not seeing any inconsistencies in the paint. And then he did the splatter pattern over it. And they're gonna be, these are pretty light. So these are 2 of the lightest, both in the tone of the yellow and in the amount of splatter on them. They range from this to like, there's a few of them that are like really, really, really splattered. Like they're like got a lot of black on them. So for now, we just have the 3 different pens, 2 different bolts, the dragon skin, which is here, a hive bolt, which I didn't bring any of those. Like, it's really difficult to tell the difference between the dragon skin and the hive when they have the splatter on them. Like they're like, especially next to each other, they look exactly the same. You can't really see the definition of the milling work. So I just didn't get another one. Get one of those to show off, and then the standard EDK. So if these sell pretty good, we're gonna go ahead and do more of those. So hello, Wendy. Okay, so the white pen. This is gonna be really hard for me to show off, so I'm gonna have to do some trickery here. So let's see if we can refocus on here. If you can see, this white pen isn't just white. This is a white base with a multicolored clear pearlescent. So the base is clear, but the pearlescent is green. It's called Mardi Gras. It's green, gold, and pinkish purple. And then there's a clear coat put over the top of it to protect the white. So this is, I mentioned, it's really hard to see here. Just laying it down, you can't really see it in there. That's why I wanted to show the kind of the close-up. So we're going to test out some of those pens. I think I've got about 15 of the EDKs that he just did, tested them on. And so I don't know how they'll sell. Sometimes white sells great. These are really hard to photograph. Like you can see from this view right here, super hard to see it, but it is very similar to a light, like mother of pearl, that iridescent shell type variation. They have other colors of this this treatment that they use. Some of them are blues and greens, like dark. Like he had painted a bluish green, like it color shifts from blue to green. He painted them over black, and it's so you couldn't even see the black underneath it because the metallic it covers so much and absorbs and reflects and absorbs so much light. It tricks the eyes into like seeing it as either blue or green, even though the base color was black. Super cool stuff that Cerakote has available. So we might test out more of that stuff going forward. I'm not sure. In the meantime, the big stuff is still we've got a couple more sunflower releases, and then we'll go ahead and feature the splatter, yellow jacket splatter for a while. Especially if it sells, and we might test out other colors with it just to see if some of the colors that we haven't been able to get good coverage on, like there's several pinks that we can't really do because they don't spray on well. You can see the aluminum underneath, or they're too thick, or they tend to like shade differently. And I know pink is one that people like. So if we can find a color to kind of do a splatter pattern over the top of pink, we might attempt to do that, some of those. And then for the meantime, we're probably not going to have we don't have really a white that's available to us to do white pens again. Like we've done them in the past before and they've been pretty good, but the whites that they have now are a little bit problematic. Like I mentioned, the one white that we've used in the past is UV sensitive and yellows over time. And then the other couple whites that they have just don't, one of them is like an off-white, goes on, it looks more cream on our pens, and the third one that he uses sometimes, just it's so like, even with like 6 or 7 coats on a pen, it doesn't, we can't use it. It doesn't, to get good coverage, it has to be so thick. On other applications, he can put it on that thick and it doesn't really impact it, but on something like a pen, you start to lose definition. One of the yellow pens before he did the splatter over the top of it, it was just the standard EDK. He'd sprayed 5 coats on it and it looked great, but the coats were so thick that the rings were basically non-existent. So much of the paint had collected in the rings that it was basically like a smooth lower. And that happened on some frag grips that he had too. Like the frag's even less pronounced of a grip, so that was completely covered in paint once you get like 5 or 6 coats on just to get good coverage. So he has to mess around with it. Luckily, even though there's a lot more time and effort into these, he didn't dramatically raise the cost of us to get these done. So we can sell them for about the same amount that we're selling our regular Cerakote stuff. So that is a good thing, because when he puts as much time into these as he did, like I kind of expected them to be a little bit more expensive. He has, a lot of time in the splatter ones based off the amount of work that he had to do with those. So not as much as the distressed pens, the steampunk stuff. Like those are handwork. This he just is multiple coats, and then the hands splattering it. But all right, so that's kind of like the stuff that we have coming out in the meantime. I have some stuff out at Anodized, so we'll have some new anodized options available on certain pens. So that was just going to say we can kind of go into some question and answer stuff, and kick it off with Eric. That was actually one of the questions I was going to answer, which is why I kind of put in there. We'll talk a little bit about everyday Keras stuff. So you can fashion a 1/2 inch long by 1/4 inch wide spacer that will work with a Parker style refill, and you can use the same Parker spring that we put in the EDKs. So that will work. So it's almost exactly a 1/2 inch. It's just shy of a 1/2 inch, but 1/2 inch will work. 1/2 inch long, 1/4 inch wide. So you could cut the top off of an old G2 refill or other refill. You can cut the top off of one of those, and then you don't have to worry about the diameter. Just cut a 1/2 inch off of the top of a refill, like a G2, or this is a Uniball, I think, and it'll work. There you go. Nathan and I have the exact same thought process on that one. G2 works perfectly for that. Cut a little piece off an empty G2 cartridge, make spacer, and it should work for you. The other side of that is like the same people were asking. We got a lot of questions about the possibility of making that pen specifically for a Parker style refill. And my answer in the short term is not in the immediate future. And if we do something with a Parker style refill, it will be its own pen. Multifunctionality with anything in everyday keras is not going to be be something that's front of mind for any of them. Like if it works out like the basic where you can use some other refills, that's great, but we're going to design pens for everyday keras or design items for everyday keras with minimal variability. Part of that is because to make pens accept multiple refills, you kind of have to future plan that out a little bit. There's a little bit more effort that goes into really to doing it well, so that you limit some of the stuff like typical lateral refill movement. You can minimize some of that stuff by engineering things into that, and that kind of goes directly against the basic philosophy for everyday keras in the basic. So that's so I don't think that we want those pens to work and not have issues with people complaining about stuff like tip wiggle, which is a frequent complaint that we get when people switch between something like a bolt and put in an easy flow refill. They're like, it moves around in there, I can hear it. And a lot of times it's not even typical. They can hear the metal bodied refill moving in there because the way that the spacer in that pen works, it allows, when you're just holding it in your hand, there to be more movement and it clicks around and stuff like that. And there tend to be some complaints. So I think going forward, to answer the question of will we make the basic or like a parts kit, an official parts kit to swap, I don't think that's going to happen in the short term. I don't think we're going to make a straight basic that just takes the Parker style refill, like making a longer like knob or piston or something like that. I think what we will do instead is design. We would design a pen that accepts a Parker style refill, and probably only a Parker style refill. Probably not something that also accepts a P8126, so that we can get that internal diameter even closer to that, so that Parker style refill doesn't move around. Because there's a huge variance in size and diameters between the P8126 and the standard Easy Flow, like massive, like a ton, like way more than there needs to be, which allows for that refill to rattle around if it in a retractable pen, because it doesn't have tension on it all the time. I think that there is room for us to add, something that is designed specifically for a Parker style pen or Parker style refill, but we would do that with intent and and some forethought on how we would want it to function and work, as opposed to what like we did with the basic. We would put some thought into that process and not just take the basic and be like, let's just throw a refill in it or do a parts kit or something. That might come down the road, but it kind of goes against everything that we're trying to do with everyday keras. I don't want to say we're limiting options, but we're trying to limit people's we're trying to limit stuff that will confuse new customers. I think that's the best way to put it. New pen people when they read through it, be like, what's the difference between a Parker and a Pilot? I don't understand this, that, and the other. Like, they don't know which one is which. So kind of keeping that down to a minimum in the beginning for everyday carrots is kind of a goal of ours. All right, let me get caught up on the chat. Yeah, Kevin, we had a excess of those bolts, wanted to kind of blow them out, so figured we could sell them at a sale. Hey, Andrew, welcome to the stream. It's good to see you. I don't think you've been here for a couple weeks or a couple months, or if you have, I haven't noticed because I've been talking too much, and I apologize. I don't have the brass modals. They're getting assembled. I think G might have actually. I didn't even see them out there when I went. They were being assembled yesterday, or being inspected to be assembled yesterday, and so I don't know where they went when they went out there to bring pins in here. I looked for those specifically, and I didn't see them. So you're gonna have to wait for teasers on those. Actually, you're not gonna have to wait for teasers. They're probably gonna be available early next week. So, burnt orange. Zerk basic spacer. I'll leave that up to you. You can make a Zerk everything, Eric. I'll let you do Zerk stuff. I'm glad people like the basic. I figured we figured that people would, but you never know. So those pins, Zach, he asked, what's with the pins some guy painted like Buzz Lightyear and other great paint shops? So we've talked about DJ before on some of the live streams. DJ is a local artist. He does a lot of like just crazy pinstriping stuff on skateboards and motorcycle and bicycle helmets, and customizes stuff and makes paintings and stuff like that. And so he's done some stuff in trade in the past. Some of those are paintings. I don't think I have one in the room right now. There's a few of them around the shop and other spots. A bunch of them are in Bill's office. But he also painted some pins at some point. And so those we had some that were painted just randomly. I think he did Pac-Man, and I'm trying to remember the other one. I don't know. There was another one that he did at the same time that he did Pac-Man. Or he might have done two Pac-Mans. One was like Pac-Man, like yellow, and then the other one was like a ghost pen, more of like just a ghost. I don't remember exactly. I'm trying to remember what company he works for. There's a guy that goes to a bunch of the pen shows. He works for he either volunteers or works for Drum Ghouls at specific pen shows. He buys a lot of our pens too. He specifically requested that DJ do a series, I think, of the Toy Story pens. I think that's right. So like Woody, Buzz, and maybe a couple other cartoon character style pens. So those were like commissioned, I think, by him. He asked DJ to make those, and DJ made those for him. And I think those photos are old from what I know. If they're the same ones I'm thinking of, those are either old photos or those are like photos that he's taken for his personal Instagram account and we're reposting them. I don't know. I don't run the Instagram account. Tommy and G run both of the Instagram accounts, so they would have better knowledge. I know I won't say 100%, but I'm pretty sure, like 99% sure, we do not have any pens from DJ currently available, except maybe like some of the like really, like he's the same one that did the Fallout pens that are on those Fallout bolts. DJ did those as well, just like they were like an easier one that he just put together, not nearly as in depth. So yeah, I think those are. He did a Calvin and Hobbes one with like Space Man Calvin, where he's flying like a spaceship, and then Hobbes is in I think he's in a spacesuit, like doing a spacewalk. So he's done multiple different cartoon style pens and stuff like that. So, all right. So, any other questions? We'll kind of pause here. So, you're talking about this. Somebody said burnt orange basic, like a burnt orange basic like this. Okay. I don't want to be a dick about it. These are damaged. The surface of like these pins were damaged. They're actually also, they're not, these are prototypes. They don't have a flat machine for the clip. I sent like 8 of these out to be anodized or to be Cerakote, and this was one of them. The rest of them went to the rest of them, I think they've sold them all now. I think they went to one pen show and sold out at the pen show. So this is the one that I grabbed for myself. But not to be a tease, but yes, there is one burnt orange Cerakote Basic 001 left. A Basic 3 teaser. The Basic 3 teaser is set to go out on Monday to basic subscriber, like the subscription subscribers. So after Monday, you'll have a teaser, official teaser. If you pay attention to some of the posts at the pen show, you'll have seen a few Basic 3s at the Chicago Pen Show. Bill had some Cerakote Basic 3s at the Chicago Pen Show. Show it live. I don't have. If I had one, I would show it. Well, let me double check. No, I only have ones. I don't even have a 2 in here right now. I only have the 2 ones that were in here that are the 2 prototypes that were never. These are shiny. These are like raw, straight off the machine. I don't have any 2s in here with me right now. Those are modals. Yeah, I don't have any 2s. I don't have any 2s or 3s in here with me. And the 3s are not even assembled yet, so. Yes, Jay, if you were paid attention to some of the posts, you know what they look like. There was one of the posts, one of our Instagram posts showed like a selection of pens, and like there was some of the orange 001s, and then there was some blue 003s, so that were put in there. So those were also some random crappy pens that we tried to salvage. Well, we did salvage them. They're the finish on when Josh like proves out the program, some of the first pens that we get off are just the outside is just a little bit, the machining is just a little bit too rough for us to sell. It's not going to tumble off. And even if it did tumble off, it's going to like have to tumble for a long time. It's going to look significantly different. Doesn't make sense for us to sand it off because that's going to take a ton of time and work. So, we'll have a random selection. Like I think the ones, there was 8 exactly that were really messed up. But salvageable with Cerakote. And then the 003s, there was like 12, I think, that were messed up, that we sent out and did a blue color. We sent them with Zach. We sent them with your the pens that we did for your company. I sent them with those to get done. So they have that same color of blue that you got, blue titanium, I think. The 002s, we only had like 2 or 3, but unfortunately they were like really bad. Like there was no way we were going to cover them up. They had like that texture on the rings on the grip had been like mashed down on certain areas. And so even putting Cerakote on them is just not going to make them, they're not sellable. They're scrap basically. No, Retro. The standard 003 is going to be the exact same amount of money. Anything that we were like any Cerakote pens, like basics done in Cerakote, would be more expensive. The plan, I hope I didn't say something like misspeak about it, but like the basic price is not going to change. The Cerakote ones are more expensive. Those were just the ones that were Cerakote. They were just like the few that we had done Cerakote. So he took those to the shows to sell at the show. He wanted some special stuff to sell at the show. The 001 and 002 and then the 003 will just be a standard aluminum pin for $29. It will have that same machining pattern. They will not have the Cerakote on them. We may start introducing some more expensive, I want to say that more expensive in terms of like very limited amount of, I don't want to say limited either. We're going to potentially sell some Cerakote pens on the website in the future, or directly to some of the customers. So the official release of anything colored, like anodized or whatever, basics that are in a color, will be, well, in like 2 weeks, a week and a half now. The basic subscription, the people that purchase the basic subscription, will have the 003 and then the exclusive, which is an anodized pen, shipped out at the end of this month. So like the 26th or 27th. And that's kind of the way that we're offering colors right now, is just as an option to subscribers through that program. And we still haven't decided whether or not we're going to do a second subscription, quarterly subscription or not. I'm not sure if we're going to do it again. I don't know. I'm trying to get people to give me feedback that bought the subscription so I can know, hey, this is, worthwhile enough. People want to do it, or no, people don't want to do it anymore. It's just causes too much time, because there's a little bit of work involved in it, especially when we have to go to reship. We have to go to ship everything out. So it's, if you pre-buy the pens, there's a savings. So we sell them for $25 a pen as opposed to $29 a pen. And then you just have to pre-order them through the subscription. But I don't know if there's enough people that would do it again, for us to do it a second time. Probably, but we'll see. All right. Now I lost my train of thought. Shoot. What else were we going to talk about? Oh, the other tiny like we've talked a bunch about the basic. And I didn't want to talk a bunch about the basic, but that's what you guys wanted to talk about. The other tiny bit of information about the basic or everyday Keras in general. We did go ahead and put a parts kit on everyday Keras. So if you lose your piston or your spring or your button, you can buy a parts kit now. Probably going to add it to the pin itself as an add-on for a reduced price from basically just to cover the cost of the product, of the pieces themselves. We are also looking at potentially adding more refills, like pilot refills specifically, tip sizes for the pilot G2, as well as precise carrying the precise V5 and V7. Those would be in black. Partly because we have a lot of people, new customers to both Everyday Keras and Keras Penco that are asking us for other refills. And it seems like it's just something that we should probably just do. Right now, I just refer people, hey, just go on Amazon, buy them on Amazon, they're cheap. But fewer, like, people are like, oh, it's just a pain in the butt. Like, if I'm not going to do it right away, they can be a little bit more difficult to find. Some of those you have to go to an office supply store. You're not going to find them at like a Target or a Walmart or something like that. So stocking them on our website and just selling them, especially since we use, like, everybody around here uses the precise refills. Josh is the only one that uses a G2. Everybody else uses the precise. So Bill uses the precise, G uses the precise, I use the precise. Everybody basically prefers that refill to the G2. Not to say there's anything wrong against the G2. If I used a 1.0, I would switch to a G2. But I don't use a big, my handwriting is already atrocious enough. So, is the anodized one that will ship out for the subscribers going to be a 003? No, it's not a 003. So, it is not indeed a 003. The 003 is going to be just raw on the site in the first thing in the beginning of May. So, that was the other thing I was going to talk about, prototyping. So we're going to be moving into prototype. Well, first off, we're going to be moving it. We're finishing up. So we have one machine that we do machining for vertexes on. One machine that we do machining for non-metal vertexes on, and it has been doing another job, a job shop job, for a while now, and it's wrapping up. As soon as that's done, we're going to be going straight into. I have a ton of rod stock from Turner's Workshop in the UK, ready to go on that machine, so we can get back into acrylic vertexes. Well, resin. They're not all acrylics. Some of them are acrylics. Some of them, I think one or two of them are cellulose. Some of them are other machinable composites, like old stock stuff. So we're going to go straight into that. So that's like the next thing on that machine. And then we're also going to start prototyping. We're going to start prototyping some stuff for Keras Penco in terms of potentially adapting some of the technology from the basic to a Keras design. So something that we would do in Cerakote and in anodize and would do other machining on to potentially, but it would be fully finished, be a lot more engineered, thought out, would have more options. So we're gonna potentially try to adapt that single piece to a higher end pin in terms of just the finish machining, the overall design pieces, the engineering pieces, the way that it fits and functions, and stuff like that, and then the finish, as well as potentially more premium material, brass, copper, stuff like that. So we're going to start prototyping some like that. Josh is also prototyping a couple other single piece pins that don't use a J-slot technology, that use other types of methods and means to retract. So that is something that we're going to do. That we're, in terms of, he's already working on the CAD designs for those. So, and then Bill and I have been trying to figure out how to do a, I don't want to say cheap fountain pen, but an inexpensive fountain pen that kind of has a basic philosophy to it. So something that's much more, it's less refined, that we can make easier, and that we can sell, that would fit the price point, not the price point, but would fit the pricing of everyday Keras, as opposed to the pricing of fountain pens on Keras Pen Co. So far, we have not successfully figured that out, and we have been, and he and I have had multiple meetings and looked at multiple different ways we can do that. It's just really, really difficult to do something like that. So that's kind of where we're at right now, Wendy. We're trying, we're doing a whole bunch. We've got a whole bunch of stuff, irons in the fire. Like, as soon as we're done with this big job, Bill and I are going to sit down and talk about, I'm trying to use the correct terminology. Current product viability, in terms of like which products we're going to put on pause, which products we're going to continue to manufacture and have for sale, and which products we're potentially going to discontinue from Keras Pen Co. So that's on my list. That's on Bill and I's list of things to do, because I think it's time for us to like look real hard at what we currently offer, and potentially like pare things down, and focus more along the lines of the basic and our real popular Keras Pen Co. items, and then potentially think out the box. So like we're trying to do with coming up with a more like budget-friendly version of a fountain pen. There shouldn't be any tip wiggle with the precise. It's the engineering is close enough to the same as the G2 that it shouldn't have any movement at all. So it's got, the tip of it has similar like methods to keep it like firm there. It's a little, and it should not wiggle. I'll just put it that way. The juice up should work as well, in the basic, I would think, because I think it's still the same length and similar size, right? I don't remember. Yeah. So we don't currently, so here's when we, all right, so Jay's says, for those of you who are watching a replay or whatever, I try to read comments or questions. It said, I'd pay for Cerakote buttons, anodizer Cerakote buttons and clips for the basic. So here's the thing about the buttons. We don't have a good way for them to hold the buttons. at the Cerakote for anodize, or realistically for Cerakote. It would be very difficult to Cerakote them. They'd have to mask the threads. And then anodize, they would lose them. So the anodizers, so like people are like, oh, well, you could just do it the same way you do X part. Like, so perfect example, this part, the button that's on the modal. That's not the case, because the button that's on the modal has a hole in it that's threaded that they can put the prongs that actually like the way that our items are anodized. They're anodized, so like the prongs of the anodizer that run the current go in here, and so you push it closed and you put it in and you let go, and the prongs like open up. It's like those opposite teeth type of things. They're metal, and then they run an electrical current through it while it's submerged through the material. That's the same case as these buttons and the clips. They use the holes that are in these to like put those prongs in there. The way that the button for the basic is machined, there's no hole on it. And while we could put a hole in it, it needs to be relatively precise, and it needs to be in a place that you're not going to see it. And it's going to add a significant amount of time to this. It's part of the reason that it's as expensive as it is because we made like 5,000 of these buttons over the space of 2 days, just allowing the machine to run nonstop, because the program is as simple as it is so that it can run that way. Adding just one more operation that drills a hole into it that we can use for anodize would add a significant time to it, but also add significant complications to the program that could potentially stop us from being able to do that. It's not out of the question that we won't do that in the future at some point, but it's not as likely. You're much more likely to see clips that get anodized before you see the buttons that get anodized, until we figure out a way to do that, like to make some type of hole in it where they can hold on to it. The parts that I've sent over there before that don't have an internal hole, like we'll send over 100 parts and we'll get like 60 back because they just can't hold on to them. It's kind of laughable, but unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why we've designed many of the parts. Several parts that we make, they have holes in them. They don't even need holes in them because they need to be able to hold on to them on their racks to put them to put them in the anodizing vat. So we just add a hole in a place that you can't see it, so that you can get that done. It's the reason that there's a hole on if you ever take the feet off of your cube, it's the reason that there's a hole on the cube is because they need, with threads specifically, they need to thread it on because they can't hold on to the holes that are on the top side, because that one's too heavy. But like we have multiple different things, like parts for the original tops that, like the original tops were 2 pieces, and the spindle had a hole in it to anodize, stuff like that. So there's some engineering and design work that has to go into making a part be acceptable for anodize, and we didn't do that on the basic for that reason, because the basic was never planned to have any kind of anodize except for black applied to it and just the body. So when we sat down, we legitimately said, are we ever going to anodize these? And we're like, well, we could probably afford to keep the price low, and if the color was just matte black, and it was just on the bodies. so it's kind of limited in that spectrum, but that's just part and parcel of the design process of like our our thinking process when we sat down to make a pen that was less than $30. So anodized versions will be those that we do end up selling down the line will be more expensive. They'll be priced accordingly. We'll attempt to keep them as low as possible in terms of like margin, I guess you could say. The margin on those pens is significantly less than margin on products, on any products like that. So we built in that already kind of mindset of like, this isn't going to be traditional margin for manufactured retail goods like this. So, all right, let's see. Yeah, we've messed around with some other options, Andrew, on the basic. Reading would be time consuming to do unless we did it in a way that was like stamping it on the side, which we could potentially do if we fashioned something to make it that way. But it would probably need some hand finishing afterwards. You get credit for what you've done with the modal. Company's G2 refill. Yeah. So yeah, Todd, like that was the idea behind. So the reason that we have the basic and it takes the G2 and is as short as it is because we made the modal. And that, that really goes down to a combination of just, I would say, 3 different people. Like so the modal is directly a result of Bill and Josh and I just putting our foots down, our individual feet down on specific things. So when we planned to do the modal, or the next pen that became the modal, I was adamant that it had to take the G2 refill and that it had to be as short as it possibly could be, and that it needed to have functions significantly different than the bolt, because there's no reason for us to make this pen and something that's similar to this pen this is just like, these are not the same technically. They use some of the same methodology, but there's plenty of people that still prefer the bolt to the modal, for whatever reason. Even new customers. Like I had a customer come in the other day and I showed him the modal thinking that he would prefer the modal, and he ended up walking out with like 3 bolts because he liked the bolt better than the modal. He's like, I already have pens that are kind of like that. They're always kind of uncomfortable to use. I'd rather have this is a lot easier for me to use. And so he ended up with the bolt. So that was kind of my thing. Bill had his like machining stuff that he was like, it's got to be like this. He's like, I want to make it as close to the bolt as possible. And then he had a few other things for Josh. Like there was stuff that we were just not going to like give any ground on. And so for a while, we didn't think that, like, I did not expect that pen to be made because like we were all just, no, I'm not. I would frequently just be like, when they would say different things, I'd be like, no, there's no point in making that pen then. It's basically just a bolt, or it's basically just the EDK. It just functions a tiny bit differently. Like, so we kind of all just were like butting heads on it. And then as time went on, Josh was just like, well, I'm just going to see if I can figure out how to make all this stuff work. That's literally what he did. He just like took everything that we had thrown at him, because he had his own ideas on what it was going to be externally, and then how the clip was going to function and stuff like that too. Like he'd already started making physical prototypes on one of the machines when he was like in between jobs was just like tooling out different things. And I was just like, no, that's too big, or it's too long, or the slot's too far down, or the clip's way too far down. Like there's all different things, because it just wasn't the correct answer to the problem. Wasn't the answer to the questions, quote unquote, that we had built into the next pen having. So we weren't fighting about it. It wasn't a knockdown, drag out fight, but it was pretty amusing to think back on it, remembering some of those meetings where I was just like, there's no point in making this pen unless it does this, and this. And Josh being like, I don't know how to do that. And Bill being like, why can't we just do this instead? And then interestingly enough, like I went on vacation, which is probably not the case because I never go on vacation. I went out of town for something. It might have actually been, it might have been a vacation. I've taken like 1 or 2 vacations. So I might have gone on vacation and I came back and they were like, hey, we figured it out. And I was like, sweet. Well, first I was like, wait a sec, you figured it out? And then they're like, no, look, we figured it out. And I was like, oh my gosh, you guys figured it out. Like you did everything that all 3 of us said we needed for this pen to do. It was kind of like a breakthrough. Like they just were like, Bill figured it out, Josh figured it out. And then moving from there into the basic, Bill and I have like talked about a single piece pen for like over a decade, where I've been like, why can't we just do a single piece pen? And Bill's like, we can't do a single piece pen. Like there's no way to do it, like to make it nice and, do all this stuff. And, Josh has now kind of mastered our more advanced machines that allow him to do some stuff like that. He's put a ton of time into it and knowing the different ways to get things done. And so he basically told Bill, he's like, why don't we just make it a single piece pen? And Bill was like, we can't make it a single piece pen. And Josh is like, I can totally do that. Like, I know how to do that now we just do this and this, and then we do this. And Bill's like, oh, you can do like we can do that on those machines. He's like, yeah, we can totally do that. And so because of some of the, I don't want to say breakthroughs, but because of some of the not knockdown, drag out, like hard-headed positions that we took on the modal, Josh learned a lot about those machines and how they like to work and how they like to run and how we can exploit them to do different things. And we applied that directly to the basic. And that's going to be applied in the next several different products we prototype. So it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, sometimes you have an idea and it's just like, that's never going to work. And sometimes sometimes that's absolutely the case. Whatever crazy idea I have is not ever going to work. It's just flat out not going to work. That's what Bill and I are running into right now with the fountain pen idea. We're trying to find a way to cut down the amount of machine parts on a fountain pen and still retain functionality, and have a filling mechanism and it not be eyedroppered and it being, usable and all these different things. And it's just, we have not found a way to do it. Not a way to do it that actually saves enough money for it to be significantly less expensive than the current pens that we have. So we're still fighting through it. We're still sitting there talking about how to accomplish that task, because we do believe that there is still a market in the fountain pen community for a product like that, kind of like there is for the basic. We just have not found the right way to make it. So, all right, I've been talking for forever, I feel like. Are there any more questions? And while you're contemplating that, if you haven't completed the form, is it this direction or is it this direction? There's a pinned comment at the top of the chat. Please click on that and fill that out so you can be entered to win our giveaway that I'm going to run here in a few minutes while you guys contemplate if there are any more questions you would like answered, or if I forgot to cover something, which is possible because I feel like I've been talking for forever and not really said a lot. Right now, there's 32 people that have filled out the form, the giveaway form. So if you haven't, fill it out now. You've got a couple minutes left, and then we're going to run it. Sliding action on the modal knob also separates it from other makers' related designs. I would agree with you on that one, Todd. We put a lot of time. That was one of the ones that was one of the things that Bill, myself, and Josh all really agreed on, was that this needed to be, I don't want to say different or better, but it needed to function, and it needed to feel and function more like the price that it was priced at. I think that's one of the big things that we noticed when we started testing out other manufacturers' pens, because we have a lot of them. We have a ton of bolt style pens that people have given us or traded us, whatever, or brought by so that we could look at. And I would say that not all of them, but many of them just like they feel like when you're like, they're uncomfortable. They're not intuitive. Like a lot of them are weird. They require a lot more dexterity than is necessary. They have really long throws, or they're backwards, or backwards for a right-handed person. I don't want to say backwards for a left-handed person, but like there's just difficulties in them. And they're priced at a point where it's like, this seems kind of not refined, unrefined. This seems like a kind of unrefined mechanism for a premium price product. Which is why this, far more simplistic than the modal has. This is kind of the level of refinement that you should see on a $30 pen. But there's a lot of pens that are out there that are like 70 or 80 or 90 or 120 that have this same or even less refinement than this. And it's just kind of weird when you think about it, or it is to me anyway. We'll have some more Delrin modals specifically, but I don't know that we're going to have too many more. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the sheet. I'm going to go ahead and pull the spreadsheet for the giveaway. Put all your guys' info into the randomizer, and we'll pick a winner. What else was I going to say? There was something somebody brought up, and now I can't remember what it was. I'm giving away 2 matte red frag bolts. So there's going to be 2 winners. They're old stock stuff that we had at pen shows that I figured we would go ahead and just give them away. So everybody. That's not what I wanted to do. All right. Winners. We've got winner number 1. I'm reading off your YouTube username. Through the Never. Winner number 2, Andreas. Lucky winner 1, lucky winner 2. Through the Never and Andreas. Congrats to the winners. If you're here, email paul@karascustoms.com. If you're not here and you left and you're watching this afterwards, email paul@karascustoms.com with your shipping information so I can send you your prize. Paul@karascustoms.com is my email address, and I'll get your prize sent out next week at some point. I promise. Okay, so that's kind of everything that I was going to talk about. If you have any last minute questions or concerns, now is the time to ask them. Otherwise, you'll have to hold on to them until next month. And hopefully we'll have way more cool stuff to talk about. I feel like we talk about the same stuff every time. And I apologize for that. But hopefully we'll have a lot more stuff to talk about next time than we did this time. Should have a for sure update. Next time, again, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's going to have to be a joint. I don't know how I could do that. A joint Everyday Karas and Karas Pen Co. Live stream. I don't know for sure. We might end up doing an Everyday Karas live stream. Oh yeah, thanks. It was fun, and I'm still recovering from the weekend. I saw your comment. Yes, thanks, Andrew. I don't know whether or not we're going to do black Cerakote or not. We tested some out, and I didn't like the way that it looked. It's kind of underwhelming. The 2 blacks that we got were not black all the way, even though one of them is supposed to be the blackest black that Cerakote offers. They had a gray tint to them. So fingers crossed. Even the stuff that's on this armor black, when it's just sprayed on, like the whole thing is black, it doesn't match the black that we get in anodize. So we're going to keep messing around with black Cerakote and see if potentially there's one we can do. But the first 2 tests that we did not turn out very well. So we'll see. Oh, Ken, we're glad you were there. Yeah, Bill had a whole bunch of stuff. So we'll have a bunch more stuff at the San Francisco show in August. So San Francisco, DC's first. Sorry, DC show. DC show's next on our list. We're stocking up on a whole bunch of stuff. We should have new vertexes by then. And who knows, we may have a brand new prototype pen by then that will roll out, or at least sneak peek at the DC show. Fingers crossed that we could do it, but we'll see. All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and shut it down. I appreciate everybody being here. If you have any questions, you can always email me or you can comment down below. Like I said, next month we may do a split, we may do Everyday Karas live stream and Karas Pen Co live stream. I don't know, probably not yet. That channel is still pretty small, and we'll probably just continue to do the updates here. Maybe just structure this a little bit different. I'll put on a hat or something and be like, okay, now we're going to talk about the basic, and then I'll take it off and be like, okay, now we're going to talk about Karas Pen Co. I don't know. We'll see. Thank you for being here. Have a great weekend, everybody. I appreciate it, as always. Stay safe. Talk to you next time. Bye.